Hi guys, welcome back to another episode of Jamaica Storytime. Wrong turn with deadly passengers. It was the year 1992, October 18, a Sunday afternoon, in the Garden Parish of St. Anne, and it was especially quiet. Nothing moved if it didn't have to. The lazy haze painted a disarming picture of peace, but the rustic charm of that rural afternoon was the unheralded prelude to bloody murder. Vic Higgs, a white expatriate executive at the Jamaica Tourist Board, could have been forgiven for thinking that life was great and the future bright as he drove leisurely towards Kingston. After playing in a golf tournament at the Runaway Bay Golf Club in St. Anne, he could not have imagined that within hours he would be strangled by men he had never met before and his body tossed into a flesh-melting caustic red mud lake built up by the alkali and alumina bauxite mines in Newton, St. Catherine. Charged with this crime, and what was described as a most despicable murder that evolved over the course of a petty murder, were Peter Blaine and Neville Lewis. Each accused gave statements to the police under caution. Each fingered the other as having taken the lead role in the killing. Defending himself from the prisoner's dock, Blaine told the Home Circuit Court that he had nothing to do with Higgins's death. Lewis, on the other hand, in sworn testimony, made what the trial judge later described as damaging accusations against Blaine. Both men were convicted on the charge of capital murder and sentenced to suffer death in the manner authorized by law after a sensational trial. Trial judge was Mr. Justice Neville Clark. The prosecution's case was presented by Crown Counsel Terence Williams, the former head of Indicom. Lewis was defended by Lord Anthony Gifford, QC, and Carlton Williams appeared on behalf of Blaine. The prosecution's case was that Higgins, on the afternoon in question, had driven his grey Honda motor car into a roadblock. He sought advice as to an alternative route to Kingston from the two accused, who were standing at the intersection of the Monique and Riverhead roads. They directed him along Riverhead Road, which they claimed could take him through the Alkian mines to Yorton, where he could rejoin the main road into Kingston. They offered to show him the way. It was the last time Higgins would be seen alive. 3 days later, his car was found abandoned at a place called Natty Farmyard near Alkian's Red Mud Lakes in Yorton. The registration plates of the car had been changed and the windows tinted. The following day, the body of the deceased was seen floating in the mud lake. The arms and legs had been tied with strips of grey material. Similar material forming a ligature was slightly wound around the neck, and a length of railway line was bound to the body by barbed wire. Dr. Royston Clifford, consultant forensic pathologist, testified that he performed a post-mortem on the decomposed body of Higgs, described in court as a white male, 5 feet 11 tall, and weighing about 190 pounds. The cause of death was strangulation. The size of the male was significant, the doctor told the court, because it takes a tremendous amount of force to strangle such a male if he is conscious. That means if he is living and if he is not restrained, because such a person would put up a tremendous defense to try and help himself. In charge of this investigation was Detective Superintendent Garfield Daly, who, accompanied by Detective Inspector Kelsa Small, went to Salt River in Clarendon on November 11, 1992, and took Lewis into custody. When Lewis was told of the charge, according to the superintendent, he said,
"The boy Peter beat me up. Carry me up at the station and me tell you where I go."
Cautioned, Lewis said he wanted Detective Inspector Small to write the statement. It was transferred to the Lioneltown Police Station, where the statement was dictated in the presence of Justice of the Peace, E.R. Bernard. The statement detailing what transpired from the moment Lewis and Blaine entered Higgs' car that afternoon up to the time of Lewis's detention by the police was later admitted into evidence unchallenged by the defense. Lewis's story is that after he asked Higgs for a lift, he borrowed $100 from one Wayne Hunter to make up his liquor money. Then he and Blaine went into the back seat of the car. The passenger seat in front had baggage. The three chatted on the way. Blaine wanted to urinate and Higgs stopped the car. When he returned, according to Lewis's statement, Blaine put a knife to Higgs' neck. He protested, but Blaine ignored him and ordered the victim to open the car trunk. He asked Higgs for his gun and assured the expatriate that he would not be killed. Higgs indicated that the gun was in a bag on the front seat. Blaine took $600 from Higgs, locked him in the trunk of the car, and ordered him Lewis to drive. He obeyed. At a point near Fatespen, Lewis claimed he told Blaine, who was known in the area, and didn't want to be seen, so he turned off the main road. He got lost, but found his way back to the main road. Higgs began to make noise in the trunk. Blaine told Lewis to return to the bypass road. He did so, and asked Blaine what was the next move, to which he responded,
"Wait till it get dark."
Higgs takes his last breath. At nightfall, the court heard. Blaine told Lewis to open the car trunk. Blaine instructed Higgs to push his head out in order to take some fresh air. Higgs complied. Blaine demanded more money and threatened to shoot him. Lewis said Blaine told him to hand him a jacket from the front seat. He complied and watched Blaine cut it up into strips. Blaine forced one of the strips into Higgs' mouth to stem the cries of murder. Blaine then squeezed the lid of the trunk down on Higgs' neck and sat on it.
"The man sound like him a dead,"
Lewis said in his statement. When Higgs finally grew silent, Lewis stirred his hands at Blaine's command. Blaine then pushed Higgs' body into the trunk and closed it. Lewis admitted he gave advice in relation to the disposal of the body and the route to be taken to avoid detection by the police. It was he who obtained gas for the car from a source known to him in Linstead. Then they returned to Riverhead and collected two friends, Gary and Garfield, who were told that the car was stolen. They headed for Kingston. On the way, Lewis had expressed concern as to what he would do as the driver of the stolen vehicle should the police intercept them. Garfield, who had in his possession his customs employee identification, suggested Lewis use the name of a customs officer. As fate would have it, the car was stopped by two cops at the 3 miles roundabout, no Portia Simpson Miller Square, and Lewis did as Garfield instructed. The sergeant was unconvinced and dispatched 2 policemen to accompany Lewis to locate the so-called owner of the car, who lived somewhere off Red Hills Road. Along the way, Lewis, according to his statement, gave the 2 policemen $200 out of the $300 he had to turn a blind eye to the fact that the car was not straight. On their return, the sergeant said he not believed that the car was straight, but one of the corrupt constables assured the sergeant that he knew the men. The obvious reluctant sergeant allowed them to go. Lewis's narrative related how they then drove around drinking beer and visiting with friends. Blaine then arranged how the car windows tinted and the registration plates changed. After sleeping at Gary's house that night, they went to Moneague, then back to Kingston. Lewis claimed that he slipped away and went home by bus, but on discovering that the police had visited, he quickly left the area on foot. While he was at the home of relatives in Clarendon, the police came knocking, and he decided to tell them everything. In his sworn testimony, however, Lewis stated that after Blaine got hold of Higgs' gun, Blaine turned on him, aiming the muzzle of the gun at him, commanding him to drive, and giving him additional instructions at gunpoint along the way. Blaine was taken into custody by Detective Deputy Superintendent Reginald Grant some 2 years after the murder in July 1994, and that same month was pointed out at an identification parade by Wayne Hunter. He gave a caution statement to DSP Grant, which the defense objected to being admitted in evidence on the grounds that it was obtained after beatings and coercion of the accused. This led to an in-camera trial, during which the judge ruled that the statement was admissible and it was tendered in evidence. In the statement, Blaine claimed that as soon as Higgs' car entered the bypass road, Lewis asked the expatriate to stop and picked up 2 young men. These men had visited Lewis at his home earlier that morning. He said he saw Lewis signal the 2 young men, indicating an intention to steal Higgs' motor car. Taking his cue from Lewis, he left the car to urinate, and one of the young men accompanied him. On their return to the car, he said this young man robbed the driver at knife point. Higgs offered what he had and promised to get more. The statement continued.
He start tremble, and I put him for lie down, and John start shake out him bag, and one small gun drop out, and me grab it up, and John grab it from me and put it in her waist.
John say,
"Put the money in the car trunk," and me do it.
On the lonely road by the Mud Lake, according to the statement, Higgs asked for medication which he travelled with, and it was given to him before he was tied up.
We take him out and we tie up his hand and his foot with the bag strap. We decide so we are going to shoot him, and John say, "Him no want no blood." Then the fat youth say, "Yo, just lower the man, nobody kill him." And we said, better we kill him, because if we let him go, police are going to involve. We take off a nice strap off of the golf bag, and we put it around him neck, and the brown slim youth and me put my foot on his neck, and draw the strap and strangle him. When him dead, we kind of just left him on the spot.
According to this graphic detail, the statement disclosed how a piece of barbed wire was obtained and the body was dropped in the mud lake. Blaine said he got about $500 from the money taken from the dead man after it was shared. Blaine's statement fingered Lewis as the person who played the main role in getting new registration plates for the car, as well as having the car tinted. He said he and Blaine was arrested in St. Elizabeth, where
we go up on an ID parade today and two somebody point me out, so I just decide to tell the truth here, man.
But in his unsworn statement from the dock, Blaine agreed with only portions of the caution statement. He told the court that after the youth put the knife to Higgs' neck and they got out of the car and started to search him, Higgs ran off. The youths gave chase. Lewis, he said, took a bag from the car and joined the chase. Later, Lewis returned to the car and called Blaine chicken. Lewis then drove to Monique, then to Kingston and back to Monique, where he and Blaine parted company with them. He was farming in St. Elizabeth when the police held him. The court heard testimony from Sergeant Maurice Orton, who had been in charge of the police spot check which stopped Higgs' car at the 3 miles roundabout about 4 o'clock on the morning of Monday, October 19, 1992. 4 men, including the 2 accused, were in the car which was being driven by Lewis, who gave his name as Michael Stamp of 2 Cedar Valley Road. Garfield Salmon was a passenger in the car and who had an identification card assured the cop that Stamp was speaking the truth. Because Lewis had no papers for the car and claimed that the owner was at a Red Hills Road, St. Andrew address, Orton said he dispatched 2 constables to accompany Lewis to retrieve the documents from the owner. Over 30 minutes later, they returned, reporting a failure to arouse the occupants at the address. After searching the car and finding nothing incriminating, Sergeant Orton testified further. He warned Lewis to produce his driver's license and documents of the car within 5 days, then allowed the men to go. Michael Benjamin of an Arnett Gardens, Kingston address gave evidence that about 7:30 a.m. on Monday, October 19, 1992, Lewis, accompanied by Blaine and 2 other men, Gary and Garfield, came to his home. Lewis, who was driving Higgs' motor car, asked him to assist in obtaining the services of an expert to tint the windows of the car. Lewis claimed that the car belonged to his uncle. The jury brought in unanimous verdicts of guilty of the capital charge of murder, and the judge pronounced the death sentences. The Court of Appeal later dismissed their appeal. Jamaica Storytime, your place of Jamaica crime stories. Please remember to subscribe, like, share, and leave your comment.